And hello out there, everyone in podcast land, and welcome back to the Front Row Podcast, the podcast for people who actually like movies. And the latest episode, kind of the kickoff episode this year of full disclosure here in 2019 on the Front Row Network. This is, of course, the show where we take the latest movie releases and spoil the ever-living hell out of them. I'm Jeremy Geckner, the editor-in-chief, and here with me, taking time out of his busy making the world a better place schedule, Mr. Scott McFarland.
Reports of my death have been mildly exaggerated.
Mildly, though. Just mildly.
There's a new Twilight show coming, so I probably should start doing that again.
Yeah, I know, right? You need, we got a new Twilight Zone. You guys got to start pulling double duty on that.
If anyone would like to write my dissertation for me, I'm happy to.
All right, calling all doctoral candidates out there. Get yourself to the Front Row's website and give Scott some tips. Or
you can be my graduate assistant. It'll be fine.
There you go. It can all work out. So, Scott, why are we here today? Well, you know. Why don't you tell everyone why we're here today?
You asked me a question, but you kept talking, so I didn't know. Was that a rhetorical question?
It's been a while. It's been a while on full disclosure. So why are we here today, Scott?
We're here to be chauvinistic pigs, sir.
That's right. That's right. The first female-led superhero movie from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you got two straight white dudes from the Midwest talking about it. Woo!
But unlike many people on YouTube, my pee-pee didn't hurt when I watched the movie, so it's okay.
That's very true. That's very true. Woke as hell. So yeah, of course, we are here because the latest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has dropped, film number 22 or 23, I believe. 21. Yes. So film number 21 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, of course, Captain Marvel, the very first one from the MCU to be headlined by a female superhero. And right off the bat, let's just get the accomplishments of this movie out of the way before we start our critical stuff with it. $153 million in the U.S., 435 overseas, and a worldwide gross. Stupid money this movie's doing. And I don't know about you, Scott, but anything I have to say about this film, I am so incredibly happy that the box office spoke and that the people spoke in support of this film.
Yeah, I mean, you could see the rumblings online as we we're getting close to the movie, because initial estimates were 150 to 180.
Yep.
And then the studio started hedging its bets and saying, we're hoping for 100. So all of the guys, again, whose pee-pee hurt when they heard about a Captain Marvel movie was like, oh, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
The social justice warriors are going to lose. And, oh, my God, it's all going to fail. The movie made $500 million in 3 days.
In 3 days, people. I mean, let's be honest here. So yeah, we'll definitely get into the attempted review bombing a la Black Panther that they tried to do with this. We'll get into obviously the I mean, I guess that's just it, but just the on full disclosure, we're all about the critics here. We're all about giving our 2 cents. So let's jump right into it. So Captain Marvel here. This is the story of Carol Danvers. She is a fighter pilot on Earth who, after an accident, inherits some cosmically powerful, like just some ridiculous cosmic powers. And she is kind of rescued and brought up by this civilization known as the Kree to be a warrior to fight in their everlasting battle against the Skrulls. But along the way, she learns some stuff as she crashes back to Earth on a mission that might change everything. So again, if you have not watched Captain Marvel yet, on full disclosure, we do spoil everything. We act like you have watched the movie with us. So if you don't want to know things, pause this, go see the movie, and then come back to it. But you've been warned. Captain Marvel full disclosure starts in 3, 2, 1.
That's no cat.
It is not a cat. Although I do have to say I love the homage to Anthony Edwards in Top Gun. I'm just saying.
I told my daughter after she watched it that in the comics that cat's name's Chewie, and she's like, well, I know why. She's an 8-year-old. I know why they changed the name, because that was a little on the nose with Chewie.
Yeah, like, exactly. Awesome. Exactly. She's getting smart there, man. She's catching on with this stuff. Okay, so Scott, let's dive right into it here. First impressions. What did you think of Captain Marvel overall?
Well, first off, going in, I was hesitant not because of the whole controversy. I could give a care less. In fact, I want more female-led movies. I have 2 daughters, right. So please bring them on. My issue was the trailers left me cold. Even the last one, which was the best of the trailers, still left me kind of cold. Brie was kind of wooden in them. They showed a few scenes that didn't have much oomph or anything else. So I was kind of worried going into this. And some people, including folks who are with us on this podcast, who didn't show up because it's too late for him, Craig, said the first part of the movie was a little confusing or, may I say, boring. But I love the fact that it jumped us right in. I love the fact that we got a Guardians and Ragnarok feel where we're not going to start on Earth. We're just going to jump right into the Kree civilization. We're 21 movies in. If you don't understand that this is a universe and not just Earth, sorry, we're just going to leave you behind. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I was happy. The movie clips along at a very good pace. I love the body cop aspect with Nick Fury and Captain Marvel. The movie passed the Bechdel test a couple times, which is
yes,
awesome.
It did.
Awesome. I was like, oh, there, it did it again. Ooh, it did it again. Hey. And that's actually one of the things. When I came out of the theater the second time with my kid, there was an interesting gentleman who walked out of the theater yelling at the top of his lungs, "Captain Marvel! Marvel's a guy! What the hell did they change that for?"
Oh, for God's sake.
I actually like the fact that they changed her origin to the fact that, one, it's the Space Stone now, which means that she, in MCU, that is the most powerful beings. You have Scarlet Witch, you have Vision, and now you have Captain Marvel. All three of them get their powers from the Infinity Stones. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But also, going back to the Bechdel test idea, I love the fact that she doesn't get her powers from a transfusion from a guy.
Yeah.
And in the comics, Captain Marvel, who I thought Jude Law was going to be, and I'm glad the movie made me wrong on that one.
They faked this on that a bit.
They faked this on a couple of things, which we'll get into, I'm sure. But in the comics, Captain Marvel gives her a blood transfusion and all that stuff, and she becomes powerful. Yeah. I like the fact that she doesn't have to get her powers from a dude. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. And, you're right. Like I'll just get it right off the bat. I have a few just like technical movie making gripes with the film, but, that
we lost you after technical gripes, and now you're back.
Okay. So I just had a few little technical movie making gripes, like the absence of what I like to call cartilage scenes, which are just very short, little like 2-3 second shots that can serve to like better set a time and space. But the movie's 2 hours and 4 minutes. I understand they have to cut some stuff, and some stuff probably gets left down on the floor there. So I can forgive it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, and I was just like you. I was unaware of why they were trying to keep Brie's like natural charm away in the trailers, because she has it, and she's obviously an Oscar-winning actress, so I mean she can do whatever the hell she wants. But like I've seen her in stuff where it's just I remember Scott Pilgrim. She's got personality coming out of her, out of everywhere, like every you know what I'm saying here. Just like it's just like that part as MV Adams in Scott Pilgrim is so small, but she just radiates off the screen there. And I just thought to myself, so you're really making her seem very cold in this, and from the very first like 10 minutes in this movie, it's a very different portrait than we see in the trailers. I mean, she's goofy and she's joking around with Jude Law, and I liked that about this, and they really kind of permeated that all throughout, and it really kind of informed the character. And what I appreciated most about it was that it stayed focused on Carol, no matter what in this movie. It was about how even the intergalactic struggle between the Kree and the Skrulls was about how she fits into it. Like sure, we get our backstory and we get Ben Mendelsohn, who we're going to get to, but like it was still about where she fits in all of this and how she can find her place, not even just in the narrative of the story, but in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole. And I really appreciated that. And we were going along with her. And you're right. I don't understand. I mean, I love that, you're right. It was just an accident. It was a cosmic accident that gives her powers. And even most of the versions of her origin story I see, Marvel does that because they grow close over time before she even finds out he's a Kree and stuff like that. But I did wonder, like Jude Law did say, you know, that's my blood running through your veins at one point. And so I was kind of wondering, what were your thoughts on why that was there?
Well, that was their homage to the original origin, because
so just an
that explains, because he's the only, well, him and Minerva were the only two Kree that found her, because at that point Marvel's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, some flashbacks show Marvel awake and alive, but that was obviously programming.
She was the programming.
Dead. So I'm assuming Carol lost a lot of blood, so Jude Law's character pumped her full of blood.
I get you. So he pumps her full of blood to keep her alive, to brainwash her. I got you.
Which is why she bleeds blue.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I really thought the movie was very well done. You know, somebody asked me, would I put it in my top 5? Probably not, but you know, I would put it in my top 10 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's very enjoyable. The 90s references are great. I love the "I'm just a girl" sequence.
I thought that was a little over the top.
Scene. I mean, yeah, but I mean, at that point, I'm like, okay, she's broken loose, and now we're just going to have a little bit of fun with the powers here. So I really kind of liked it.
Throughout the movie, they did a Big Lebowski thing where every time music is playing, it's playing because it's playing somewhere.
Yeah.
So like the first 90s song you hear, she walks in the bar and it's playing on the jukebox, and in her visions when she's hearing Nirvana, it's playing a record player, stuff like that.
Right.
That one is just like, yeah, screw it. We're just going to throw it in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes a special kind of person like Gwen Stefani to sell out 4 times in one career. So I have a little bit of bitterness and no doubt anyway. But yeah.
Well, and I mean, so, you know, like I said I had some little gripes with cartilage scenes, whatever, but what I really loved about this right off the bat was how, you're right, and Brandon Davis, our classics host, said it best, or he told me it was nice that where I could just go to a Marvel movie and didn't have to have anything known beforehand. I could just go in there and just enjoy it and enjoy the story.
Which is interesting, since they literally drop you in and give you absolutely no context.
I know, but I mean, he said like he liked that he was just finding out the stuff with them. And to that point, I love the very beginning when she's captured and they take us through her backstory, through the Skrulls finding out her backstory, through like exploring her mind and stuff. I absolutely loved that aspect of the movie. I mean, what did you think of that?
I love Ben Mendelsohn. So when he's like controlling the replay and on second watching, you realize, now that you know the twist, which we haven't even talked about the twist, but the fact that the Skrulls are not bad.
Right.
When you know the twist, they definitely give you hints, because for one, the Skrulls never actually kill anybody.
Right.
They shoot people close range, but they don't actually kill anybody.
Right.
But also you can just hear from the beginning that Middleton is not like the maniacal mustache twirling villain. He's just trying to figure some crap out. He's like,
and for an actor that always plays the villain, like that was ingenious.
And I mean, and he was even nice to her during the flashbacks. I mean, obviously they're mind draining her or whatever, but when she's in the cockpit and he goes, "Please open your eyes, please." I was like, "Oh, he's being nice."
I know, no, that struck me too. Like it was very, it was very like scientific almost, you know. Like it was very like, okay, like ask her, no, look down. Yeah, right. Like it wasn't like yelling, it wasn't like, you know, shocking her or something like that. You're right. It was just very, very kind of go along with me on this. But so let's start getting into some characters here. So we've already talked a little bit about her, but obviously this movie is centered around Carol Danvers, around Brie Larson. So we're comic book nerds. We know Captain Marvel. We know the versions of her. Do you think this one lived up? Did this live up to what you were hoping to see from Carol Danvers in the MCU?
Carol Danvers, for me, has never been a very strong, I mean, I don't mean that literally, but a very strong character in the Marvel comics. For one, because the comics aren't exactly empowering, even to this day.
Haven't been for a long time.
No, I mean, there's one story arc where she gets raped by a dead guy and then gives birth to that dead guy to bring him back. And then when the Avengers find out about it, they let her go with the dead guy.
Yeah. And they don't, they just kind of go with it. So, I mean, just.
And for the longest time, Captain Marvel was off the reservation because Rogue zapped her powers, which is why Rogue can fly. But so
Yeah.
I've
And also, don't even get into the sexist costume. I mean, from the 60s and 70s.
I was actually, when they were doing the little color thing, I was waiting for the bikini to show up just for a minute.
Yeah,
I'm
I
glad
was
it
too,
didn't.
unfortunately.
But we got the Tron light show, which was fine. But
Yeah.
the for me, I was looking forward to her because I know the MCU does not, it's not beholden to the comics. So I knew going into this that we're going to get, as Kevin Feige said, the most powerful superhero we've ever seen. And I was looking forward to that, and I was happy with it. I also like the fact, we talked about how in the trailers Carol was played as wooden, but context is everything.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was she was being trained to not have emotion. And so she was trying to be that Kree warrior that she said she was told that she was. And so you can see the cracks start to form while she's hanging out with Nick Fury, and I appreciated that. And by the end of it, when she's met up with her friend Rambeau, she's completely opened up and become herself, which is another thing I loved about it because Jude Law. I keep forgetting his name because I always thought it was gonna be Marvel. So
I'm gonna look it up real quick so we stop saying Jude Law.
Yeah, but he says, "I want you to become your best self," and she does become her best self, which is not what he wanted, but we see her become that. So I've seen a couple reviews online that say that there was no character arc. She started out as a warrior, she ended as a warrior. That wasn't the character arc, and if you thought it was, you weren't paying attention. The arc was her becoming human again,
right?
And we saw that arc, and it was a good arc.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more time she spends on Earth, the more personality that comes out, and the more her emotions start to fuel her control of her powers again. And that was really, really a great thing. His name is Jan Rog, by the way.
Jan Rog. Yeah, which is in the comics too. And there was some talk about maybe he was playing both characters and they were merging them. So I'm very glad that the MCU, and this is not the first time they've done this, but I'm very glad that they are not afraid to change things. So when I was going in, I was figuring, okay, Skrulls. I was figuring, okay, we're going to find out that one of our people we've known forever is going to be a Skrull, and we're going to get Secret Wars. We're not getting any of that, and I'm okay with it.
Well, and yes, I've seen the same gripes about the Skrulls are bad. You made them sympathetic, and again, look, we're not beholden to anything. It's the '90s here, all right. There's a 20-year time jump we do here, so the Skrulls have plenty of time to gain some power and to follow a bad leader and turn into an enemy again. I don't think that they did anything permanent with that.
There's a part in the comics where they pretend to be cows and hide. It's not exactly like the Skrulls have always been villains.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look, I love the Secret Invasion storyline as much as the next guy, but that, what they did in this film with Talos and with the Skrulls doesn't negate that. In fact, I thought they were going to set it up because I thought they were going to kill Talos, but I'm kind of glad that they didn't. But
just this once, everyone lives.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We couldn't say our typical thing after the intro because nobody does.
Well, there was some create by a cat, which by the way, answers a dangling thread from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. may have answered it because I haven't watched it in 3 seasons. But they have some Kree bodies in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they never said how they got the Kree bodies. Now we know. They were
exactly. So not too bad there. So I totally hear everything you're saying there. I absolutely loved the scenes with the Supreme Intelligence. I thought casting Annette Bening was a coup for Marvel there. And I think that the part of the movie that really got me with her was her full emergence while in there with the Supreme Intelligence, because I didn't think that the first flight, I think they could have done a little better with that, when she actually flew for the first time. But the actual emergence of the full force of her powers was, I thought, really great, really cinematic, and just it just made me almost cheer out loud in my seat. So and look, it's Brie Larson, people. She's a fantastic actress, and she really did bring her A game, and it continues that trend of A-list actors bringing their A game to these movies. That's why they're good. But unless you have anything else to say, we can move on to the relationship with Sam Jackson here.
Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned the final emergence, and once again, I don't understand why the Russo brothers can do CGI and no one else can.
Yeah.
But the CGI was terrible in this at the
Yeah.
end. But I'm
Yeah, I
okay
don't get
with
it
it
either.
because much like Black Panther, I love Black Panther, and that final scene was trash. But the final fight scene, but um, you can when she's like hovering at the very end when she's hovering in front of the scroll ship and she's about ready to fly off at the end of for the credits, you can she's like CGI, then not, then CGI, then not.
Yeah,
Like,
I thought
come
that was
on,
so
guys,
strange
come on.
too, because you're right. Like that was kind of the one time where I was just like, "Oh, that's cool," and she's wearing the bomber jacket, and it looks really awesome. But yeah, I mean, when she does start the galactic space fight, I mean, as cool as it looks, and it is still thrilling and cool. You're right; it does look very CGI, and you're right. Like certain Marvel movies do that really well, and certain Marvel movies don't do that very well, and this is one of them. And yeah, I don't know where that comes from, but honestly, it didn't take that much away from me.
No, it didn't. And as I said, Black Panther is still an amazing movie, even though the final fight scene's trash. And this is still a great movie, even though she looks like a video game sometimes.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
to the final thought, because I complained, I have to give a bonus here too. For one, I don't cry much in movies, but this movie got me twice. First, the Stan Lee.
Oh my
intro.
God.
I was tearing up, but also again, and I say this in many of my reviews, I definitely am my daughter's dad and daughters, and the point where she is on the ground with the Supreme Intelligence, and she says, "You're only human," and then you see her as a little kid over and over again and just standing up. I was like, I want my daughters to watch this scene over and over and over and over again. And it hit me. So I appreciate that this movie had some emotion and had
You're right.
It wasn't just an action flick, which is why I can give up on the CGI complaint, because it did more.
I totally agree with you. Like there's more important things happening than complaining about, a 4-minute, CGI fight. And you're right. That scene is very breathtaking. And again, it all plays into that big emergence. But you're right. Like probably the biggest aspect of this movie I liked the most was the interaction between Brie and Sam Jackson. And the thing about that is I saw them on their press tour and everything, and they were having so much fun with each other. And I was just like, okay, that's probably just, a thing. But I didn't know that was just literally going to be exactly what the movie was like, because they're wonderful together. They really are. And that you're right, that buddy cop aspect is just fantastic. And I think this is kind of the best we've seen of Fury since Winter Soldier, not just because of screen time, but because he makes a real impression. And it kind of shows you how he I mean, look, aside from the Easter egg of how he comes up with the title for the Avenger Initiative, and we'll get in a second to how he loses his eye, but it's I just think that this is a good side of Nick Fury that a lot of people have complained that not a lot of people, but some people have complained that like, oh, he's too jokey, he's too light and stuff. It's not real Nick Fury. And I'm like, this is exactly what Nick Fury's been. I mean, even going back to the other films like Winter Soldier, like Iron Man 2, everything. I mean, like he's serious. He's the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., but he's joking all the time. He's cracking jokes everywhere. So I think that this is a perfect way to see what Fury was before we knew him.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we're seeing again Nick Fury 20 years ago, 24 years ago. So a lot is going to happen to his character. This is him as a level 3 agent when he will be level 10 by Winter Soldier. And he hasn't seen some shit yet, but also he knows what he's doing. He was a spy. He was a colonel, and I do appreciate that they kind of built that in with also giving him a little bit of humanity.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we've really seen Nick Fury carry a portion of his own movie, really. I mean, he's been kind of an ancillary character in many movies, but this is the most screen time he's gotten. And it's great. And as much as I complain about the CGI in the end movie, the Coulson was a little weird, but he was perfect for this. The CGI de-aging was great for him.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely. I have no clue what Disney's doing with that de-aging, but it is phenomenal. I can't wait to see how Scorsese uses it in The Irishman. It's the new wave of filmmaking, I think. If used sparingly, I think. So yeah, I love their interactions there. I think. So, what do you think of the way Fury loses the eye? Obviously, a bone of contention with a lot of people so far. I thought it was pretty funny personally. I thought it was kind of perfect.
Much as I don't need every single character to be every of a person's mother and daughter, and the universe doesn't have to be everything's correlated, and sometimes shit happens and you just gotta deal with it. I love the fact that he's gonna let this rumor fly that a Kree burned his eye out, and that's the way it's gonna go. So he's not gonna lie and say no, that wasn't the case, but he's not going to tell the truth either.
Right.
And I appreciate that about him. And you knew it was going to happen. As soon as he picked up the cat the first time, you knew that cat was going to eat his eye out. I mean, it's just the way it was going to be. And it just endears me to the character more. If you want every single thing to be serious and dark and gritty, go watch Snyder movies. If you want fun, stick around.
Yeah. Well, we
I'm
couldn't
sure
do a
if
Marvel movie without digging the DCEU. But...
I'm sure if it was Snyder, then he would have plucked his own eye out because he was feeling bad about the death of his mother and father. I don't know.
Sure, exactly. Well, and I'm telling you though, I think you were ahead of the curve there, man, because DC is making that such a big effort to go lighter with their stuff now.
I'm looking forward to Shazam, the other Captain Marvel movie.
I know, right? Look at that, 2 in a month's time. So yeah, let's get to Talos here, because obviously this is the big twist of the movie, and I gotta say,
I didn't see it coming.
No, I didn't either, and I think that that's really a testament to the script and to like the way that Ben Mendelsohn very subtly puts his character out there. And again, you're right, like this guy plays a villain in everything, and he's great at playing a villain, but it was the scene in the house where, he's, there trying to lay all his cards on the table. And it was that humor that was coming through. And all of a sudden, like that character twists so sharply. And I just all of a sudden found myself thinking like, wait a minute, Ben Mendelsohn, you're charming as hell, man. Like, what is this? And I just like, I thought that he was so perfect in this role. And I mean, like, if you want to call it a villain, because that's what we build him as, but I just thought that was one of the most unique characters I've ever seen in the Marvel Universe.
This just goes along with the fact that after Phase 1 and Phase 2, Marvel hurt us, and we complained about how the villains were one-dimensional, and we didn't grasp on any of them. Now we've gotten to a point where we have some really good three-dimensional villains: Vulture, Thanos, a few others as well too. So now So now we're like. Marvel's like, now we're going to turn on your heads, because now you're starting to like these villains. So we're going to throw some twists in here. And this isn't going to be like the Mandarin where you're just going to hate us. It's going to be an actual decent twist that makes sense. It's going to be great. Yeah. And I love the fact that I'm the one who hates Iron Man 3 because of the Mandarin twist, but I'm okay with this because it was done well.
All right. Well, I didn't mind the Mandarin twist.
Oh, the Iron Man 3 can burn in hell. It's the worst MCU movie ever.
Oh, come on. Iron Man 2?
No,
World?
I will take Iron Man 2 because it has Black Widow and it has Rhodey in it and it's fun.
Okay,
Iron Man 3. I will take Dark World just because it actually has something to do with the canon, because the reality stuff.
You're nuts, man.
I fucking hate Iron Man 3.
Incredible Hulk.
I hate it. Oh, I'm a Hulk fan.
Actually, I am too.
As soon as the Incredible Hulk 1 showed me Bill Bixby on TV and then played the Lonely Man theme, I love that movie. I still love Incredible Hulk.
I did too. I
grew up with the Bill Bixby TV show, so
I think it's underrated, man. We got Abomination. I mean, come on. So yeah, I thought I really liked the twist, and like I said, the Skrulls they're not painted with white hats all of a sudden. Like there's evolving that can happen here. They left the planet in the 90s, and we're not there anymore. People,
and I misspoke. I said the Kree didn't shoot anybody or kill anybody. Well, at the end, when he tells him the color of his daughter's eyes, he blows the shit out of some people. So
yeah, and that's when I thought that they were going to kill Talos, because like after he gets shot, they have the scene, like the really quick shot of his daughter like looking shocked, and I thought that's where it's going to be. Like he's going to die, she's going to grow bitter and lead them down this bad path.
You need to go watch DC movies and just leave it alone.
Yes, exactly. The Martha syndrome is hitting me. So anything else you want to call out in this? I mean, you talked a little bit about Rambeau, Lashana Lynch. I thought that was really, really good stuff. I felt like maybe the movie, if it had like 5 more minutes to give, we could have gotten a little bit more emotion, a little bit more backstory from them, that wasn't just snippets and wasn't just flashbacks, but it still did give us quite a bit with those two.
I would argue, though, that as you mentioned to begin with, this is Carol's story, and we're going along for the ride with Carol, and Carol doesn't remember this stuff. She gains it at the very end, but at the end, do you really want a flashback when we've already gone through the third act and we're ready to wind down? Because Carol doesn't remember nearly anything until I think she finally gets all her memory back when she's sitting with the little girl and she calls her Lieutenant Trouble, because that's when even the little girl is like, oh, you remember. And so that's when it clicks. So at that point, we're past the flashbacks. We're just going straight to Act 3.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I was kind of okay with it too. And again, like that first time where she walks up to Rambeau and her daughter, God, why can't I remember the daughter's name? I don't know, Lieutenant Trouble, as you said. You know, she like, you know, there's a shot, she walks up, like Rambeau like turns and sees her, and you know, like there's again the cartilage scenes. Like I wanted a shot, like just one close up of Rambeau's face, like looking shocked, as opposed to staying far away. But you're right, though, that might have been that artistic choice to keep it in Carol's perspective, you know.
Yeah, no,
like keep it from her. But you know, like those are the kind of shots that I'm talking about when I say cartilage scenes. Like, you know, it doesn't make or break anything, but it's just kind of like what I was expecting to see and I didn't.
Well, I think that's a complaint I do have, a minor complaint about the film, and that goes back to what Kevin Feige is doing. He's decided that I don't need to pay for big name directors. I can pluck these folks from indie films and I can pluck them from TV, and as long as we give them a really good script and all of the tech support they need, they will make great movies because they understand character. And I think this is the same with these two these co-directors. Is they haven't done much. And so this is their first big action flick. So I
Anna
think
Boden and Ryan Fleck.
Yeah, so I think at this point they were doing what they know, which is as indie directors, they were getting the money shots with the character pieces. So they weren't doing as much coverage as they should. Yeah. And I think that may have been something that an AD could have backed them up on, that they maybe need some more support with.
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. Like, this is a lot of times these directors are thrown into these big action things for the first time, but you're right. Marvel gives them so much support that they don't feel overwhelmed by it. And you're absolutely right about the indie like camera work, like especially the shot after Carol learns the truth about the Kree and the Skrulls and how the Kree basically stole her and brainwashed her. That shot where she walks out into like the misty like fields and stuff, like that's indie filmmaking all over it. I mean, and it's a gorgeous shot. So yeah, I just thought that was a great relationship, and I love that, you know, it's Lieutenant Trouble that like you know, gives her like the idea for the costume and all that. And I like how the costume works. You know, I like how it's you know, she's not Spider-Man sewing her own costume here, you know, like it's just sort of her own take on trying to reclaim her Kree identity, and I really liked that. So, you know, I think we've covered all of the big people here. If I had one complaint about any of the characters, and I get why we don't get this, but it feels like the Star Force, whatever they're called, I think that's what they're called,
Star
or something.
Force, yeah, Star Force.
Man, we don't get a lot of time with them, and it kind of sucks because, as you mentioned, Minerva, she is a huge villain in the Captain Marvel comic books.
She's dead now.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, like we had Jaimin Hunsu coming back as Korath, and of course we know he has to survive this because he has to show up as Ronan's minion in Guardians of the Galaxy. But
which, by the way, I will say, and I told you this because you were sitting next to me in the theater, that was more character development for Ronan than Guardians gave him. I am not being facetious. He gets more character development in that one scene where he's like, "We'll come back for the weapon, the woman." I was like, "Yeah," because this does everything. That's why Ronan has been going for stones since then, because he knows the Tesseract was involved. That's why he grabs the Power Stone, because he realizes if Space Stone made that girl, then the Power Stone will make me. It makes Guardians a better film.
It really kind of does. I absolutely agree with you. Like, it makes me look back at Lee Pace's performance in that, and it's just like, I'll bet you there's some seeds that were planted here, you know, like, and I like that. But yeah, I just feel like you've got like, because the thing is, you have that first scene with them, like right before the mission to go find the spy, and they've got like this Guardians-esque comedy thing going on. You know, like, you know, the guy calling Jaimin Hunsu like an objectively handsome man, and you know, it's like very charming.
Sure I thought for the longest time that was the same dude from Thor with blue skin.
Maybe it is, actually.
No, it wasn't, because that actor did Punisher as
Oh.
well too. But I was like, hey,
Oh, Ray Stevenson, yeah, yeah. So like I thought like, okay, we're gonna get a lot of good stuff here, and again, I get it. We were at 2 hours and 4 minutes already. You don't want to go past that for an origin story. Hell, Marvel doesn't like to go past 2:10 for any of their solo films. But I just wish we could have gotten a little bit more with that team and seen them as more of a threat for that third act. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's because, and I understand why, because Carol is overpowered. That's her power. She's overpowered. So at that point, no one was going to be a threat for Carol. She basically wipes everyone out. And the only reason why it takes her a bit of time is because she's learning her powers, which I did appreciate that, to make that a little bit more of a third act that actually, wasn't just her obliterating everything, and she has to learn her powers a little bit. But at that point, all those folks are cannon fodder. And I do like the fact that Minerva was taken out by somebody else, because that at least gave us, a little bit more of a threat. Because again, if Minerva had gone against Carol, she would have been wiped off the map. So
yeah. So, and I'm interested to see, because like, obviously the way this movie's making money, we're gonna get a sequel. Audience score on Tomato Meter be damned.
Larson is signed up for 7 films.
Yeah, which is great, because look, I can see her, and I got to save it for the end credit scene, but like I just think that, like, and again, like, all the complaints I have about this movie are very small. I mean, like, like I said, I wish I could have gotten a close up for 3 seconds here. Like, it's all stuff like that is, you're right. Like, that's more of an indie filmmaker decision, as opposed to like something somebody forgot to do or something like that. So, and that's where you got to respect that stuff. Again, like, I wish I would have got more time with Star Force, but whatever. I mean, God, am I going to cry myself to sleep because I didn't get to see Jude Law for 5 more seconds? Yes, I am. But
that receding hairline is amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
He almost looks alien with that receding hairline. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, and I'm very interested to see what they could, but they've set up a couple of different avenues they could go here. Obviously, a villain would be the Supreme Intelligence, which, if you've like read any of the, Cosmic Avengers comics or anything, the Supreme Intelligence of the Kree Empire is a very formidable threat in the comic book. So that could be a huge thing going forward. And I just like that, like, they still grounded this cosmic story enough for us to not have to, like, go all over space in this very first adventure.
Well, we know the only other film, I mean, they're not going to confirm anything except for Sony's Spider-Man until Endgame is over with. But
which I love.
But we do know the one film that they have confirmed, because it really has no impact on Endgame, is the Eternals. So, and the Eternals are going to be another cosmic group. They're going to be based off of Jack Kirby's New Gods and everything else, which New Gods was DC, but same idea.
But I mean, this was kind of his MCU or Marvel equivalent.
Yeah, so we're going to see that kind of stuff again, I'm sure, with the Eternals, and I think that she could play a part in that as a cameo as well, too. The other thing, too, is timeline-wise, we can do more of her between now and Endgame.
Exactly.
She's going to survive Endgame. Everyone's going to survive Endgame. But we don't. The whole point of Guardians 1 is Ronan is pissed off because the Kree have signed a peace accord.
Yeah.
But that happens in 2010 or 2011, whenever Guardians falls in. It's a little bit behind the timeline. Mm-hmm. So that means for the next 25 years, or no, 15 years, math is good. For the next 15 years, she's going to be working with the Skrulls or working to bring down the Kree War. So there's a lot of story to be told there. Jude Law is still alive. Korath is still alive. Ronan is still alive in that time period. So they could do a lot of stuff between 1995 and 2012, whatever it is.
Absolutely. I mean, there's unlimited potential here.
And now we know why the Kree, potentially why the Kree signed a peace accord, because Carol scared the shit out of them.
I can see that scenario where, like, Carol's just on this mission to destroy the Kree Empire, and eventually they're just like, crap, we're going to be dead if we don't stop. So.
And again, it builds up Ronan's story more than I ever thought this film would, because Ronan is pissed off. For one, I think they mentioned his dad was killed or whatever, but he's pissed off because this human has destroyed his civilization that he has spent his entire life building an empire. So again, Ronan got more character development in this movie than he did in his own movie.
Yeah, go figure. The only thing I'll say before we hit the post credit scene is I absolutely love the Indiana Jones fake out at the end. You know, the whole you got to prove it to me, like beat me without anything. Just
that was Wonder Woman was I don't want to do too much comparison because Wonder Woman's a good film too, except for I think the third act falls apart with this giant CGI monster. But the one thing Wonder Woman didn't have that this film had, in terms of, and of course I'm again the white middle class guy talking about girl power, but this film had her finally say, I don't need to prove shit to anybody.
Yep.
And that's the one
I love it.
That's the one thing I think Wonder Woman was lacking in her portrayal, because she needed Steve to die for her to get back in the fight. Whereas in Carol's like, no, I'm good. I'm just going to kick the shit out of you, and I don't care.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think you said it to me, or it was you or Nate. One of you was sitting on me, but I think it was you. You said like, Wonder Woman is amazing, and it is. It's a great film. It really is. And I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. But Diana is way more of a Mary Sue than
believe it.
than Carol is.
Say, but I said it.
Yes, exactly. No, I thought it was you, but you're right. Like, if you did compare them, you're right. Like, you could put the Mary Sue label way more on Diana than you could on Carol. So,
well, and I don't think that's the character.
I don't think it should go on either. But
yeah, I think Wonder Woman's script, if they would have made we're talking about another movie now, but Act 3 did a disservice to Wonder Woman, where Act 3 did not do a disservice to Carol.
No, absolutely not. So I agree with you, and I think that that's great. So, all right, Scott, let's get to it. Possibly my favorite post-credit scene in MCU history. This was awesome.
I love it when they actually give us something. It much like at the end of Ant-Man, when we see it apart from Civil War. This is immediately jumping into the other film. I will still say, and I think I mentioned this in the theater too. My favorite after credit scene is a trailer, because at the end of Captain America: The First Avenger, we immediately dive into Cap being in the future for him, and then the post-credit scene is the trailer where Nick Fury says, "Gentlemen, you're up," because that was the culmination.
Like, and that was just like the little. I mean, that was, you're right, like a little like mini 25-second trailer for Avengers.
"Gentlemen, you're up," and that was it. But that being said, I love it when they jump us into the next film and get us ready.
And I mean, like, that's kind of something that's been lost a little bit in the post-credit scenes. Like, I thought Ant-Man and the Wasp was fabulous.
Well, because and everything was leading up to Endgame, so that was good as well.
Yeah. But that one was fantastic. But, like the Guardians 2 scenes, like there was the Adam Warlock scene, and then everything else was a joke. And,
but Stan's a watcher.
Well, yes, but I mean, like, that's what I'm saying is, like, all of them are just like self-contained jokes of sorts, and of course we still get one of those here, which let's not be and one of my favorite ones ever is a self-contained joke, which is patience. I think, but to see our first taste of Endgame here is so awesome,
and this tells us so much. For one, in the Endgame trailer, we know Steve is going to shave his beard. In this scene, he hasn't shaved his beard yet, which means this is early on in the film, which means the trailers that we have seen, there's 2 scenes in the trailers. One is when they're walking into a field looking up, and now it almost confirms they're looking up an Iron Man.
that in that empty space.
Because there's an empty space there, and that obviously is going to be Carol now, because she's with them by that point. And then there's another scene where they're marching in the Avengers headquarters, and there's also a missing gap, and I assume that's Carol now too.
Yeah.
So it fills in that gap. It also tells me that something I thought was going to be a big part of this film is going to happen in the first 15 minutes, and that's Carol arriving. They're not going to spend the half of the film going to get Captain Marvel. She's just going to show up, which also tells me she's not the crux of their decision, what's going to happen to end this. She is a part of how they're going to be able to defeat him, but she is not the MacGuffin, which is something I assumed she was going to be. And now this end credit scene is telling me definitely she is not.
Yeah. So, the only complaint I've seen online about it is that it kind of takes away a big moment from the movie of Carol first meeting the Avengers. And I was like, you know what? I don't think it does. And I don't think it, and I love that it's just Boom, she's there. Everybody's like, whoa, what the hell? And I love her only line, which is also a reason why she says, where's Fury? She doesn't say, where's Nick Fury? Because of that conversation they have in the car. They call me Fury.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing too. Now she has stake in the game because obviously she has stake in the game if half the universe is dead. But now her friend is dead. And she doesn't know that yet. She's going to find out. And
but I mean, like,
pissed.
Yeah, and what I love is that, you know, the implications of Infinity War on Carol specifically, because look, she's been off presumably fighting in intergalactic wars and stuff for the last, what, 20, 25 years of the MCU. And yet, you know, when we see her, she is ragged looking. She is, you know,
she has a new outfit on too.
She does have a new outfit, but it's just like, you could tell that, you know, like I imagine she's out there and she sees the ramifications of the snap and sees Nick Fury's beacon go off, and I think she thinks the worst already, and she just boom, beeline straight for Earth. And I just love that thought, and I don't even have to see it, and it already makes me understand that this character has already grown more seasoned, because when she says where's Fury, it's got that twinge of worry and hopelessness in it, and I love it.
And to those who think that this has ruined a part of it in game, you're not going to care, because you're going to get 3 scenes, and I guarantee you're going to get these 3 scenes. Mark it down. Obviously, we haven't had Cap and Tony Stark get back together since the end of Civil War.
Right, that's going to happen.
The reunion's going to happen. They're going to be buddies again. We're going to get when everyone comes back. But more importantly, we're going to get, and I've said this in a couple reviews now, I swear to you, since Kevin Feige made the first end credit scene with Jackson coming in with Avengers, he has had this thought of every single character in one shot with Cap saying Avengers Assemble. It is going to happen. 60 characters in one shot. They're going to assemble, and then you're not going to give a shit about knowing that Carol is going to show up in the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, come on, people. Like, everybody said Infinity War could never live up to it, and lo and behold, look, they juggled everything, and it was awesome.
And I still say Infinity War is part of this. Infinity War and Endgame are the same movie. So for Infinity War is Act 1 and Act 2. Now we're going to climax with Act 3.
Yeah, I agree, yeah, I mean, like, but you see, like, I love, like, the counter. I love that we see that, you know, they're back in HQ, you know, like, and just seeing the Avengers, like, interact with each other, and the worry on all their faces of just like, well, where are our friends? It really evoked the Infinity comic book, where, you know, there's the very famous panel of Captain America looking at one of their screens, and there's just this whole list of people that they can't locate, and their pictures on the screen and everything. And I just, like, you know, and we get that a little bit in the first trailer, but like just all of these names and these friends
millions of numbers is counting.
Yeah, and the number just keeps going. It keeps ticking up and up and up. And you're right, like, I think we're going to get some time passage in Endgame, so I like that this is kind of, I don't know if this is necessarily, you know, like the movie, but like, this is, I think, probably at the very beginning, like you said. You know,
well, I would almost say that, and I'm just speculating now, whatever their first plan is going to be is going to fail, because we also get the scenes where, again, Cap is clean shaven and he's with Black Widow, and she has a different haircut. A different haircut than what we saw in the end credits for this movie.
Well, and you're right, because keep going.
So when they're talking, he says, "I this has to work because don't know what we're going to do next." That tells me that whatever Carol and them try to do the first time out, or even, it's not going to work. So then, the next phase is going to be when Scott shows up and says, "Hey, I've got a time portal in my back of my van."
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you. Like, I think that makes logical sense too, because you're right. There is that shot of Natasha with like a pretty long braid while she's doing the target practice, which is totally different than what we see there. Yeah. And you're right. Steve is not shaven yet, and yet then he is. And when in the line in the trailer, when Natasha says, "This is going to work, Steve," and he says, "I know, because I don't know what I'll do if it don't." That, I think, gives more context to that of they've tried a lot of things and nothing's worked. Well, and that's why they're all so depressed. And
he says something in the trailer too. He says something about, a lot of people move on. We don't, which means they have not moved on. And I don't know, maybe even Carol's going to go off and try to find Thanos in his little farm planet. Who knows? I mean, I don't think I think obviously time travel is going to have something to do with it, and but I think the thing this film has changed is Carol is not going to be the one who shows up in the last, much like Thor did in Infinity War. She's not going to show up and just kick the shit out of everybody.
Right.
She's going to be there from the beginning.
Yeah, and they're all going to have to figure this out together. So, look, I don't know. I don't have much more to say. Any final thoughts here on Captain Marvel? I'll just say that the movie, I think, lived up to what I was expecting, and I think it exceeded it. Again, I'm not going to put it in my top 5, but I would put it in my top 10. And out of 21 movies, I mean, yeah, that's not that bad. No, and I think that the film is important, and that's not the only reason to like it. It can be important and also live up to the hype, and I think that it personally does.
Of the origin stories, I think this is in the top 5. I still think Iron Man, Captain America, I'm a little biased on that one because Cap's right, but Captain America and probably obviously Guardians are better origin stories than this one. But we've had a lot of origin stories, and this is definitely in the top echelon of them. And I think this Ant-Man and the Wasp was more of a building more up to Endgame and kind of bringing us back those characters. Whereas in this, I see as the really first true stepping off point, which is when we were walking out of the theater, somebody came up and mentioned to us that she felt that this was just a commercial for Endgame. And I saw this as a commercial for what happens after, because this is the start of the next generation of the MCU, along with Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and Wasp and all that, to where this universe can continue to expand. It probably won't be as interconnected as it has been, but it can continue to expand, and I think that's great.
No, I agree with you. I think that this is a jumping point. I think that Carol will play a very prominent role in the future of the MCU, along with T'Challa, along with Stephen Strange, as you said. And and you're right, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have death that forces that. I've actually come around to your thinking on this quite a bit, Scott. But I think
just as once, Rose, everyone lives.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, come on! Don't Eccleston me, man.
But Doctor Who was good. Actually, 13's pretty good.
Well, and here's what I'll tell you though. I think that with all the Fox characters coming into the MCU as well, and Kevin Feige has admitted as much, like we're taking things in a very different direction than what we've had, and I don't mind that. Like if this is a commercial for what's to come, that's a great future that we've got, even despite the prospect of losing Chris Evans, of losing Robert Downey.
You there? Hello. Uh-oh. There you are. You're back.
Yeah. Did you get my last thought?
You talked about losing Chris Evans, and then that was the end of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we do lose those people, then, like we still got a pretty bright future, no matter how we lose them. And so this is a great commercial for the future of the MCU. I agree with you.
When Cap uses the time stone at the end to go back to get his date with Peggy and leaves the shield for Bucky and or Sam, that'll be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how that story's going to end.
I have way too many continuity errors with that one, but I'll let it go. I'll let it go right now.
We can have this argument because Infinity
Shield, man. How does Shield happen then? Come on.
Why not?
She founded it, man.
Well, yes, because she can't when she has a guy.
Actually, that's a good point. I never thought about it. I always thought that Steve would just kind of take her away or to an island or something.
That's very sexist of you. Congratulations.
Isn't it? Yes. See, I'm checking my chauvinism at the podcast.
Because I watched Infinity War yesterday. They already threw obviously they're going with the Back to the Future 2 type of time travel, because at the very end when Thanos brings Vision back to life just to kill him again, he actually doesn't change any other time around that. He just changes Vision back. So you can play with time, and I'll get into it later. But
no, but I think that would be pretty nice. Like, what if Steve takes the plane down, but then he just kind of stays gone, and he's just there with Peggy.
He walks into that little computer room where she leaves him and says, "Hi, I'm back."
Hey.
It's something. That's again, and I
look, we'll have a whole episode previewing Endgame with our theories, but
we will. Okay, good. Because man, people just are too freaking dark. We can have happy endings, man.
Yeah, and Steve kind of deserves it, people. Let's be honest.
Thanos doesn't have to get shot in the back and die. He can hang out with his family. We can have happy endings, man.
Yeah, man. Come on. God. Anyway. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Full Disclosure. Again, though, we always want to hear your thoughts as well. Tell us what you thought of Captain Marvel. Do you agree with us? Do you not agree with us? Do you love her? Do you hate her? Actually, if you hate her, just stay the hell away. So
does your pee-pee hurt?
Yeah, exactly. So you can find more from the Front Row Network on the frnpod.com, or you can find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for the Front Row Network, or on Twitter with @FrontRowReviews with a Z. Tons of stuff coming up for the rest of March here. Let me just pull up my little schedule here real quick. We're going to have a live episode of Beyond the Mouse tomorrow for all you Disney people. Brandon Davis and I are coming back with the 100 Best. We're going to be reviewing our 100 through 91 picks for the greatest films of all time. We're going to have a flashback. Scott is relinquishing the reins to our good buddy Ryan Lutens for a little bit, and he's going to be doing the Sam Raimi classic Army of Darkness for the flashback return.
Well, now I'm mad at him for not inviting me to that one.
Well, he might invite you. Who knows, man? We got to have some kind of passing. And then, of course, we're also right now in the middle. Well, before I get to that one, we will also be doing a full disclosure on Jordan Peele's Us coming up later this month. Of course, for classics, Brandon is going to be bringing Mark's Madness to you. We're going to do some Marx Brothers spotlights there. And then, of course, the next episode of Pop Culture Draft Night with Phil Rockwell will be a Game of Thrones Season 8 Deadpool draft. Sarah and myself are going to be on that, and I cannot wait. That's going to be a really fun time. But right now, we are in the middle of, on our Facebook page, our March Movie Madness bracket. This time, you guys voted. You picked summer blockbusters over sports movies. That was the wrong choice. But you know what? We're having fun with it. And we're switching it up this year with the podcast. We're not going to do all 64 rounds. We're only going to do the round of 32. And you guys get to vote and choose what makes it to 32. So go to Facebook right now. We're leaving the voting open until we record the podcast. And you can vote on your picks for the round of 64. They're all up there right now. And there are some crazy matchups. So go to Facebook on the Front Row Network.
There's some stupid matchups too.
Well, yeah, there are some bad ones.
I will again mock the bracket as much as possible. Who the hell puts Star Wars? And by the way, it doesn't even say what. I mean, yeah, it's obviously New Hope, but who the hell puts Star Wars with Rafa Khan in the first bracket? There's only somebody who doesn't like Star Trek at all. Thank you.
It's Lou, man. That's the evilness of Lou hair. Anyway, just one last plug for everyone. Of course, we've had a guest on the Front Row a couple of times. Our very good friend Courtney Enlow. She is one of the editors for Sci-Fi Fangirls, and she wrote an amazing review of Captain Marvel on sci-fi.com. So go and find Courtney Enlow's review. You can find her on Facebook searching for her name, ENLOW. It is a great review. As one of our personalities said, she is a word assassin, and she is on fire in this review. I know you read that review, Scott.
Mm-hmm. And I tried not to ape it as much as possible on this review, but I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So go and find that one. All right. Anything else before we sign off, Scott?
I'm not dead yet.
Yes, I'm not dead yet. Maybe we'll have a Monty Python off or something like pretty soon. All right, everyone. That is going to do it for this episode of Full Disclosure. For the Front Row Network, I'm Jeremy Geckner.
I'm Scott. And
as always, we will see you in the front row. Bye. Higher, further, faster.
Okay.